Okay, so here's a little bonus for you. I've worked out a way to make the iris look a little more realistic. If you take a look at both of these eyes, you'll notice that the one on the left has the little striations in the iris that look more like real eyes. And this looks good, but let me show you how I was able to do that. I did use the lens flare tool, and I did it by getting into isolation mode with the eye. So I'm going to go over here to the right eye, and I'm going to double click on it, and you can see that everything else kind of grays out. And what I want to do is put a lens flare onto this. So when I have this in isolation mode, you can actually see the three things that are in that group. And we want to add the lens flare to this blue part right here. So the lens flare is a little tool that's here with the other shapes, and it's used for being in space and stuff like that, but I thought we could use it for this. Let's see if I can make this work a second time. So I'm going to add that right in there. It's a lens flare, and if we just leave it like that, it's on top of the pupil, and you can see it's outside of the group. So I'm just going to drag that and reposition its layer so that it's on top of the blue part and under the pupil of the eye. Now one of them does look pretty good, so maybe a second one will add a little more of that to it. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to go over here to my lens flare tool. Once again, that's where it's at. And I'm going to pick this, I'm going to make it slightly larger. You definitely don't want it going out too far, but since we have white here, it's not going to show up too much, but we're going to get another set of lens flare lines inside of that as soon as we reposition it. So let me undo my selection tool, bring the second flare back in there, and let me make a slight change to it. So I'm going to alt click on it, and I can rotate it around a little bit so it's not lined up directly with the other one. And I've got a little bit larger, so it did turn out a little bit differently. Let me hit escape to exit isolation mode, spacebar for the hand, and bring those over right there. Now we're pretty zoomed in, and that's why these are showing up. If we zoom out, you can see that lens flare on both of them. Looks like that second one I did on the right might have been a bit large. How do you get back in there and make changes? Well, double click, get into that isolation mode, alt click on that, and then we're just going to use shift and alt to scale this down without moving it. Some of us have been doing a little bit of scaling, and it tends to move off the center. But if you hold down shift and alt at the same time, it will not move the center piece. Let me hit escape one more time, and now that extra ring around the pupil is not quite so pronounced. But that gives us some pretty cool looking eyeballs in there.